Hey everyone, happy Wednesday, beginning of the month. Thanks for joining. We're going to give another 2 or 3 minutes. I still see some people jumping on, so give it a few minutes, then we'll get this thing kicked off. But thank you again for taking the time to join us today. Okay, guys, let's go ahead and get this started. So we have a bit of a special webinar this month because we are grateful to have the presence of the great Lucas Salvage with us, who is a good friend of mine, also a great partner of RapidScale and a great partner of the channel. So first of all, Lucas, thank you in advance for your entertaining 30 minutes that you can provide for us, and obviously thank you for the partnership and taking the time to join us today.
Absolutely, Andrew. I appreciate the opportunity to share some what I hope will be great things, in my relationship with RapidScale. Hopefully, get some great questions, be able to answer some areas of questions from anybody that's listening today, and understand how we can help grow our customers from an infrastructure and DRaaS and desktop space. But I'm pumped to be here. Thank you very much for allowing me this time.
Outstanding, man. Thank you. So first of all, so everybody knows this is being recorded, which could be a good or a bad thing for Lucas and I. I guess we'll figure out when we're done here, right? But for all those who would like to get a copy of this, obviously you'll be able to go back and listen to it. If there's anybody else that's not on the call that would like to hear this information, happy to get this to them. So starting off, Lucas, I'm gonna kind of hand the floor to you for a quick second, just to give an overall kind of profile of your business, what you guys do. Obviously, you're leaders in the space. You guys are great at what you do. You run a very successful business. But for those folks out there who don't know who OnCall is or Lucas, can you give just a quick high level of what you guys are doing and kind of your approach to the market?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks again. Yeah, I mean, listen, OnCall Telecom is about a 15 or 16-year-old telecom agency. We have been doing things probably like most agents have been doing things for quite a while. So, we kind of go back to the days of a nickel long distance versus 3-cent long distance, slinging T1s and dynamic T1s, a little bit of internet access. I remember when 256K was a great number. So I've actually been with the organization for about 13 years now. I lead business development and operational development for our customers and for our company. And really, I think that we're probably fairly similar to a lot of other folks. I mean, we've spent a lot of time developing and cultivating relationships with our customers, and we have a great deck of customers. We have a couple Fortune 500 financial customers, Fortune 100 consumer products customer, and a bunch of other enterprise customers in between, as well as a lot of small customers. So that's been a real point of emphasis for us, which was trying to get up market, trying to find customers that, not only had the dollars to spend on solutions that make sense, but also customers that are savvy enough to understand that the market and the landscape is changing, right? So things are not always on-prem anymore. I mean, I think a key component to this probably webinar will be to understand that, from a software perspective, people have been using Salesforce forever. Well, that's a cloud application. I think hosted telephony kind of came along earlier, maybe than infrastructure and DRaaS and desktop, but cloud-based telephony platforms have been around for quite a while now, and they're still getting homed into what's really the best platform, I think, at least. But again, another cloud application. So as folks shift, I think, some of these applications that they currently, or that they've historically had on-prem, I think that there's an even greater shift for customers to now start moving infrastructure, desktop, those kinds of things to the cloud. We've been working with Rapid Scale, Andrew. I think you and I have been working together for probably 4 years now, maybe 5 years at the most.
Yep.
But I do remember our first meeting at an Intelisys Channel Connect event, back in San Francisco, I want to say.
Yep.
Quickly realized that, I like working with people who I like working with. You're one of those people. But I think it's probably fair to say right now that, I haven't had a better experience working with any infrastructure company as I've had working with Rapid Scale. So, the deals that we do together, I think, could start out small, could start out large. But again, I think we'll probably get into a little bit about how you help OnCall, from a Rapid Scale perspective, grow customers, how you identify other opportunities within that customer that may not even be Rapid Scale opportunities, and send those to us as well. So, we're really excited to continue our growth with Rapid Scale as kind of our go-to strategic partner in this space.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So, and two things, right? Quick story, because for a little history, Lucas and I have been working together for quite a while, going on, it's probably almost 5 years now, but Lucas and OnCall was actually the very first lunch and learn training that I did. Fun fact today, I know a little more now than I did then, but certainly we did. And this is the textbook process, right? This is the textbook. Lucas, they're great at what they did with connectivity and voice piece. They killed on that side. And they knew they needed to expand their business on the cloud and the compute, right? They were hearing buzzwords and they were hearing conversations. So we came in there, we trained them, and essentially gave them the tools they need to be able to recognize an opportunity and bring us in when it happens. So real quick, Lucas, in terms of your engagement, right, I think people want to know, we've had a lot of success in this space together, and you have in general. Whenever you do recognize a cloud opportunity, what's your typical processes that you're doing?
Well, I think it stems, from a couple different things, right? So I think everybody understands that this particular segment of business is all about timing for customers, right? So, being able to recognize a customer that is in the middle of a server refresh, that's in the middle of looking at some kind of prem-based DR platform, looking at customers, who are saying, I got to replace 100 desktops this year. Those are obviously very easy key buzzwords to be listening for. But I think if you take it a step deeper than that, we've kind of made a shift into talking about infrastructure, disaster recovery, hosted Microsoft Office 365, cloud mail, those kinds of things with every single customer that we have. I think it's inherently much easier to go to a customer that you already have and try to be able to sell them additional services and gain more wallet share than it is going out and hunting new cloud customers. So part of our strategy in identifying cloud opportunities has really been, listen, everybody has heard the word cloud. Not everybody understands what that really means, because it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but everybody's buying it in some form or fashion. And I just feel like if we're not on the gravy train of being able to sell it and at least understand when to bring in an Andrew or some of your team from an SE perspective, then we're going to miss the boat. They're going to buy it from somebody else. And really, honestly, nothing makes me more upset than when I have a customer that we've had for 5 or 6 or 10 or 15 years, and I find out they bought something that I sell, and it wasn't from me. So again, my only advice or my experience in the identification of cloud opportunities is, again, the buzzwords of desktop refresh, of, I don't want an Exchange server anymore. I've got workloads that I want to move into the cloud, or I don't have enough processing power in my current on-prem solution. Those are all obviously easy buzzwords, but I would challenge anybody on the call to go back to every client you have and ask them what they're doing in that space. Ask them what their cloud strategy is. And if they say they don't know, then that's a great time to have a conversation with Andrew, you and your team. And if they say yes, still a great time to have a conversation with Andrew and team, because ultimately they may not be thinking about the same things from a cloud perspective that Andrew and his team might be bringing to the table.
Yeah, and one of the things that I'm going to kind of tee you up for here as well is just what we both know happens. So as we all know, complexity is the enemy of execution, right? The dirtier you make the water, the harder it is to see through it. So when you, Lucas, when you do recognize an opportunity, you know, what is a process that you take? Which I know the answer, but I'd like to hear it from you as well.
Ask me the question again. I'm trying to understand what the question is.
In terms of bringing in providers, right? What is your strategy when you recognize something? You know, what are you going to do? What providers are you bringing in?
Got it. Thank you. So again, I think that, you know, again, most of my compadres that are on the call, you know, they could be still used to a different kind of sales process. So when I started out in this business, and again, back into the connectivity and the voice and those kinds of things, you know, we were bringing in 3, 4, 5 providers at a time. Who's cheaper? What are the differences? Customer, here, you make your decision and you sign whatever you want. But again, I think to your point, Andrew, the complexity of an internet circuit and a PRI is a little bit different than the complexity, you know, around infrastructure and, you know, VMware versus Hyper-V versus whatever else and things of that nature. So one of the things that we really tried to do here is we've tried to limit our scope of vendors that we're bringing in for opportunities like this, because I think, again, to your point, the more vendors that you have that are talking about infrastructure, disaster recovery, desktop, I think that customers tend to get confused. And when customers are confused, they're not buying. And I think that's been a critical piece. So when I recognize a cloud opportunity, and I'm sorry if there's any other providers on the phone right now, but if I recognize a cloud opportunity, I mean, I typically call one person, and it's Andrew. We talk about the opportunity. It's either going to be an opportunity that he says, yeah, let's go get it, or that's not really in my wheelhouse. I think I'm probably at a point right now from an identification process where I don't bring him too much stuff that he doesn't think is good. But, you know, there's from time to time he may tell me to you know, go pound sand. But we're trying to bring one provider to the table. If for some reason Andrew and his team find a reason why they don't want the opportunity or it doesn't make sense, you know, we have other providers. But I would, again, caution folks out there that when you're dealing with infrastructure, bringing in a lot of vendors is going to be tough for the customer to really get their arms around.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And that's how we're able to get to a solution quicker and get to a close quicker, because, you know, we're going in there, we're basically, you're saying as an unbiased vendor, right, to the customer and somebody who's gone through this before, you're saying, look, this is who you need to work with. I've vetted this before. We understand this is the right company for you to do. And from there, we go shoulder to shoulder and we go sell it, right, as opposed to kind of dirtying things up and making it more complex. And also the customer having the same conversation with 3 different providers, come see 3 different angles with different language in there. It just adds a level of complexity that really prohibits us from get things done. I mean, one thing that Lucas and I do together, and this is something that RapidScale as a whole, this is kind of part of our motto, is a shoulder to shoulders. You know, just like next week, Lucas goes in there, we set up 5 or 6 meetings with customers where he's recognized that there is a cloud opportunity there. From there, I'll come into town and we basically will run a day's worth of meetings together to go in there and meet face to face with these customers, start driving the solution. If we're already working with them, we'll be doing demos and moving the sales process along from that perspective. But we're coming in and we're having very good meetings, very quality meetings, and we're walking away with next steps, and that's how we essentially are driving business together.
And Andrew, let me lob onto that for just 1 second, because again, it's important to again understand that if you're not comfortable selling cloud today, that's fine. It's really about understanding that customers need it, want it, and are buying it. And if you have customers that are of any size, understanding that Andrew and his team, will come in. It doesn't necessarily have to have it's this opportunity. It's, having a conversation. Andrew's coming in next week. We have, I think, 5 to 6 meetings set up over 2 days. And not all of them are about a specific solution. Some of them are about, listen, I know you guys are going to be buying cloud, or I know that you're buying cloud. What are you buying? What else do you need? And how can we fit, into that strategy for you? So I just wanted to, certainly reiterate the fact that, understanding that you're going to come into town not only helps my customers become educated, because educated customers are purchasing customers, but also helps educate the agent or myself, because every time you're here, I hear you say something else that I wasn't aware of, and that gives me more ammunition to recognize opportunities.
Well said. That's 100% accurate and very well said. So let's get into this. So this whole thing's about the anatomy of the deal, right? We're here, and Lucas is on this call, not because he's a great partner, but essentially we have a really good success story. So essentially, kind of going back, and I'll run through this. Lucas, with one of his customers in Washington, D.C., who was very small at the time, a young company, they asked him for some DR. So essentially, he calls me up, and we come in and we set up a disaster recovery form, give him the ability to fail over to our data center in Sterling, and set that up for him. Right from there, roughly $3,500 or so to start off. Right, not a big deal. Nor did we really know what we were getting into. So this customer actually, they do polling for the government, and they partnered up with the RNC in this past election, the Trump election. They were working with the RNC, and they were able to. They had an algorithm and a process where they were able to put him places where he needed to be, and there's a lot of credit that was given to these polling guys in particular on his ability to win this, right? So with that, they obviously solidified themselves as a pretty legitimate company and basically paved their way for success. So from that, they then come to us, and obviously we're staying in touch with these guys. I stay in high touch with them. We got account management, staying in touch with them as we do with all of our customers. So essentially, they came to us one day. They go, listen, we're going to need to move to a cloud base, right? We have to add 30 people, and we need to start kind of scaling this thing up, right? And we don't really have the infrastructure here to do it, nor the know-how. So we essentially spun up. It was roughly maybe $8,000 to start off on a production environment. And as this company continued to grow, and they had the success through the election, and then they also the RNC continued to leverage them from other campaigns, they continued to add users over time, right? So we're looking at roughly over a 12-month cycle, 12 to 16-month cycle, going from a $3,500 a month DR customer to a $31,000 a month production customer. So this is the textbook of what we used to say back in the day of get the low-hanging fruit. DR doesn't sell a lot, right? DR, it's easier to sell now as a commoditization of some of those services has happened and the prices got a little bit more where it makes business sense. But essentially, it's the textbook, mail in DR, non-threatening, let's set it up for them, and then kind of get our fingers on them and it gets sticky. And this thing grew to be $31,000 a month, right? Which is, I know, Lucas, I think you don't mind having a $31,000 a month customer with us, right? Especially when it's very low maintenance for all of us and it just continues to grow. But I'll pause here for a second because everybody, I think we kind of understand where they started and where they're at. Lucas, I'd like to get some of your feedback on how you felt RapidScale engaged with this customer, what the overall implementation process looked like, turning up orders and things of that nature, and kind of give us some feedback from the partner side of how this customer grew and what it's meant to you.
Yeah, you'd love that because it is a good story. And I know you're just waiting to get to this. I know you are. So listen, I think again, so one of the key components here was this particular company also recognized that to buy the type of server infrastructure that it would cost to run the application and to run this algorithm was going to be a massive amount of money up front, right? So again, we always talk about turning capital expense into operating expense, which is again part of this entire process. But from the partner side, this really couldn't have been a whole lot easier, right? So identification of the opportunity, and I knew that there was an opportunity there. There's a DR opportunity, and again, one vendor that I brought in and I called in, and from there, what really happened was it took on a life of its own, not really between me and the customer, but between RapidScale and the customer, right? So what essentially ended up happening was Andrew talked to me about their desire to kind of look potentially at some kind of production environment, moving into the infrastructure cloud that RapidScale provides. So I talked to the customer. They said, do you have any other customers doing this? I said, absolutely, I do. Take a look at what the pricing looks like. Let's have a conversation about, the TCO between your capital expenditure to buy it or your operating expenses under RapidScale to just manage it, maintain it. And really, I think it proved out pretty easily, to be something that they could do on an operating expense. The other thing I think that's probably important was the deployment time frame, right? So if you're going to buy 30 servers, because each one of these guys, Andrew, right, it essentially has their own server. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, very, very robust application. Each one of them had their own, large VM they needed to run off of with up to a terabyte of storage per user.
Right. So think about what that would, number one, cost to buy. Think about number two, what time frame that takes to implement and stand up in your own location, and then think about what that takes to manage and maintain. These guys are not really, I wouldn't say they're not IT savvy, but they don't have the kind of resources that they really need to have to be able to manage and maintain that kind of environment. So pretty easy. Again, to Andrew's point, started out, 8, 9K, I think, a month of production stuff. But then really what happened, and this, I'm sure Andrew's smiling on the end of his phone, is that, Andrew started just sending me orders. So as they continue to grow and as they continue to need more users, and they continue to need more compute power, I'm just getting slipped $2,000, $1,000, $3,000 orders from Andrew, probably sometimes twice a month, but certainly once a month, over the next, 8 or 9 months. So, from an agent perspective, as much as I do want to be engaged and understand what's going on, not only from an educational perspective for myself, but also to make sure that I'm taking care of my customer, I think what you would find is working with RapidScale, it helps you be removed to some degree from the amount of the minutia and day-to-day that it takes to manage a customer and to manage an implementation like this. So implementation, I don't use the word flawless very often, but pretty much flawless implementation, not only on the initial install, but also all the subsequent installs. And again, by the time my operations team got the order from me, they email Andrew and say, I know you already have this order. When are you going to deploy it? And Andrew would email back, 3 days later or a day and a half later and say, it's already been deployed. It's already turned up. It's already done. So speed to execution for these guys, phenomenal. Really happy that this customer went down this path with RapidScale. And I think the last thing, which is pretty interesting, is that as Andrew continued to grow this infrastructure in the cloud, there were other opportunities that came out of that, right? So they need more bandwidth, obviously, right? Like, as you have a 20 meg DIA connection from Comcast, and you start running all your infrastructure in the cloud, you need something bigger than a 20 meg DIA from Comcast, right? So additional growth there. Looking now potentially to do some things on the RapidScale side with SD-WAN to help the customer be a little bit more resilient and redundant. So again, not only have I been the benefit of a wonderful partner and good friend in Andrew, who's been able to help me grow that particular customer with little interaction for myself, but I've also gotten other opportunities that may not even be RapidScale opportunities. So again, just a phenomenal, in my opinion, success story. And again, for any agent that's out there listening to this particular webinar, I can't stress enough the ease, the speed, and just really the professionalism that these guys really kind of threw out there for my customer. So.
Yeah, that's great, Lucas. And essentially, and I'll spend about 2 minutes on this, but what we did, and this is where I feel that we do very well, right? Our ability to conform with the business and scale with them. So this customer was a very textbook kind of cookie cutter move each time they added an employee. So what we did was we basically built out a wiki, right? So this wiki allowed for any one of my support engineers to go out there and give them what they need because they had a playbook. That file was associated to this customer. So as they sent a new order in, it didn't matter which engineer, familiarity with the customer or not, they could go to a document that would say, these are the steps in place, this is the person we need to talk to, and this is when it needs to be done, right? So it's a very streamlined process, which is good when things are kind of cookie cutter that way, but also allowed us to kind of over-deliver on our end and make sure that they were getting what they needed, because these guys would hire somebody, they start the next day, and they need $1,000 worth of compute, right? A 4x16 server and a terabyte of storage. So it's a success story, right? Success story on paper because it started out, a long time ago when, kind of your savviness within the cloud and ability to kind of recognize this stuff, right? You understood they needed some DR, you came to us. It's the actual textbook story of DR to production. Why would you not just fail that over, go to production with us, and then grow it out the roof? I mean, nobody expected this kind of growth out of them, but we certainly weren't turning away the business, right? So obviously, great customer, one that we, and also very low maintenance, right? We're going in, we're doing the patch management, the updates, the monitoring, right? We handle the back-end infrastructure for them. They're very quiet. Things get done. It's just an overall a great customer for us together.
100%.
So yeah. So
well
again, thank you for that. Does anybody have any questions kind of ping in there for us about this customer kind of before we move on to some housekeeping items?
See if anyone sends them over, Andrew, but in the meantime, someone did ask what types of opportunities in terms of verticals are you guys seeing a lot?
So for us, I mean, the big verticals that we happen to see where our services benefit them the most, healthcare early and often, right? Still, I mean, healthcare was an early adopter to this space, typically because they've got, you know, larger businesses. They're very lean on IT that can leverage managed cloud. So healthcare was and still is our biggest vertical. We've seen a large uptick in the manufacturing space as well. I think the manufacturing space is starting to really pivot hard, because if you look at any manufacturing, a larger manufacturing company, there's a lot of M&A that happens, right? Merger and acquisition. So whenever that happens, they're starting to have a remote location that they're not familiar with coming to their system. So the best way to get them up and running on their systems is some type of cloud platform. Typically, a desktop as a service or a Citrix deployment seems to work well for them. The third one that I'm seeing very frequently now is a financial. Financial was a very tough one to crack 3 to 4 years ago. I'd say over the past, you know, call it 16 to 18 to 24 months, we've seen the adoption grow. A lot of it has to do with the fact that we are able to provide some security, kind of over the top, some security from the DDoS mitigation and SIM, security information event monitoring. And also then being able to lock down their environments through Citrix and through desktop as a service. So those are kind of some of the three big ones. We still see them across the board, right? Automotive is another one that comes up. So there's a lot of them out there, but those three I tend to see more frequent than other, with an asterisk next to healthcare.
Awesome, and we did just get another question in. So although RapidScale has a security offering, if the client needs something more comprehensive, will RapidScale integrate with other providers and work seamlessly? And if so, what are the stipulations or disclosures that a partner would need to know when positioning RapidScale?
So I guess it depends on the security, right? Obviously, if it's some type of edge security with a firewall, not really, because that's typically the edge into our data center, into our cloud, right? But any of the DDoS mitigation or SIM, we can sell that as a standalone. We can also manage it for them if they have it in place today. The other kind of commoditized piece of security that we see and we do a ton of is the Mimecast, an anti-spam for any type of email. Obviously, this needs to be in place for a customer. Lucas and I actually just recently drummed up an opportunity around Mimecast recently and ended up getting a quick win out of it. But that would be the other piece. So yes, I mean, we can have the conversation around security. We've definitely got the solutions to be able to handle it, and we can sell that as a standalone.
Awesome, and that's all that's coming out of that.
Okay, so a few housekeeping items. So first of all, Lucas, I know you just got excited about this one. So for you guys that don't know, we are having a pool party at Channel Connect. Lucas is going to be a VIP for this one. So we're at a pool party. It'll be Thursday afternoon, 12 to 5 at Towel Beach. If you guys are channel partners, come on, stop by, say hello. Relatively informal, right? I don't really want to sit down and talk about a Citrix farm or management of DAS, right? But certainly happy to have a conversation. Our C-suite will be there, right? All of our leadership will be there, as well as the other channel managers. So come on, stop by and say hello. We'll be happy to see you there. Pretty sure Lucas will be there for that one.
100%.
And on the education side, on Wednesday, we actually have, so we partner with kind of best of breed technologies, right? That's what we do. We have our cloud, but we also leverage a lot of providers. So we're going to have some of our three kind of biggest providers come in and do some demo sessions. If you're interested in doing this, obviously this is going to be it'll be informative, right? To kind of bring you up to speed. We're going to go over the SD-WAN with Citrix, which I know it's still relatively new and unknown that we're doing this, but this is a product that we're pushing hard and we're doing a lot with. It's really benefiting the customers that are leveraging it. Mimecast, obviously. So Mimecast, I say, and I think, Lucas, you agree with me with this, that's low-hanging fruit as well, right? We can sell Mimecast as standalone. They don't need to have 365 or Exchange with us. We can come in and just leverage Mimecast and sell it. It's a quick win. It adds up. It also helps us get sticky and kind of spiderweb out into other aspects of that customer. And then Zerto for disaster recovery as a service. That's also something we would come in. They're going to come do a demonstration, show the portal, show how it works. Zerto is a best of breed technology when it comes to DR in terms of the replication software. DR is all about the engine to get that data over to the landing pad, and they're best of breed with that, right? So if you guys are interested in this, obviously let us know. We'll get you set up, but it's going to be very informative and very educational, and we're looking forward to having these great partners with us. Do we have any other questions?
Yes. If a customer has mostly software as a service applications, how does desktop as a service benefit them? Last one.
So that's a good question, right? So here's the thing, right? And it depends. A lot of times a company wants to standardize the way that their employees are working. There's no better way to standardizing it than providing them with a single image, a Windows 10 image, where they go in there and access their SaaS applications. Not to mention there could be some data, right, with their local file server or what have you that's in there. You need to be able to protect that data, right? So you're keeping a secure connection. Everything that's happening is obviously encrypted, but it just allows them to have a streamlined, standardized production environment that's easily controllable and scalable. It also depends on the SaaS applications, right? It depends on what else they're doing, but really it's about locking down the environment. And I don't mean locking down to a certain extent, but web filtering, obviously content filtering, from in terms of an ownership level down, and then giving the ability to access those applications in a secure environment. Great question, though.
Yeah. And then another one just came in. This will be the last question, you guys, because we're running a little bit over. But what is the benefit of desktop as a service over mobile device management?
So they're kind of two different things, right? Desktop as a service is the deployment of your core line of business applications to any device, anytime, anywhere, right? So we're talking about a Windows 10 image where you've got your Office suite in there, you've got your files in there, you got your applications in there, and that is your pure working environment, right? So there's some consistencies with the two in terms of the device management side, being able to limit the production of what an employee can do, lock them down so you can disable them from accessing it. There is that piece of it, but desktop as a service is about providing a secure environment where you can access your core line of business applications, right? Mobile device management is more of it's what it is. It's device management, right? Being able to wipe your computer clean, right, or wipe a device clean that's a company device. So there's some consistencies there, but really the overall desktop as a service is about working in a production environment and not so much controlling the actual device that you're accessing it on. Great question. Perfect. So that's all the time we got for you guys. Sorry,
Andrew,
so
can I just
Lucas,
make a final note really fast?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Summer.
Sorry. Just for all the partners on the line, we are switching webinar platforms in the next month or so. So just look out for a message about that because it might affect your registration links. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Great point, Summer. Thank you for that. And we'll make sure we get that out to everybody as well. So obviously, if you guys have any other questions that maybe thought of later, obviously feel free to let us know. Lucas, brother, thank you for joining, man. We appreciate the partnership, appreciate everything you do for us. Thanks for the time today. I know you're a busy man. I hope everybody was able to gain something from you. I mean, you're a product of the environment, right? You've taken the steps, you put yourself out there, and now you're seeing a lot of success from it. Obviously, looking forward to coming in this time next year and talking about a new deal that we closed, from one of the meetings from next week.
Yeah, listen, no question. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you, buddy, and certainly appreciate all the time that you spend helping us spin up customers. And again, anybody that's on the line, this is the team, this is the squad. They know what they're doing, and they will not let you down. So excited to continue on down this path with you, buddy.
Great stuff. Thank you, everybody. Hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday. Look forward to seeing you in Las Vegas at Channel Partners. Have a great day.
Thanks.